Hello friends and welcome back to Irrational Gamer YouTube channel. Today we are going to review the best game, Hitman Contracts. In the third part of the popular series, 47 wakes up trapped in a dingy hotel room, and Ayo tells the story of the bald assassin's plight via a series of often surreal flashbacks to justify why it is you have been hired to kill a succession of henchmen. Split into 12 contracts and set across distinct and often gorgeous locales, including Hong Kong, France, England, and Russia. The game follows the template laid down by Silent Assassin, in that you are given a few basic mission goals and left to your own devices as to how to achieve them. A maze of possibilities. After the initially bizarre escape mission, the game quickly settles into the comfortable and predictable groove of taking out specific unsavory gang members while acquiring objects along the way. But while the basic goals may be simplistic, the varieties of ways you can achieve your missions are almost mind-boggling. Part of the success of Contracts is in its level design, which nearly always demands repeat exploration before all of its secrets come to the fore. Some of the very hardest levels actually turn out to be incredibly simple if you are prepared to take the time and effort to check out the map, investigate the clues offered in the form of exclamation marks on the map, and work out what they are used for. Unlike, say, Splinter Cell, there's often little requirement to do everything in a prescribed fashion, and if you screw up, you can still succeed, albeit with a whole pile of lead following in hot pursuit. As noble a game design decision as this may be, it leaves you forced, as with the previous games, to engage in a hefty bout of trial and error before you finally take the time to observe the movements of guards and stop giving yourself away by marching around wielding your firearms screaming, "Shoot me." However, thanks to some fairly slack lemming-like AI, picking off a huge crowd of enemies is never as hard as you suspect it will be. Once you are rumbled, the only tactics seemingly open to these drones is to come streaming towards you, and with some incredibly forgiving hit zone collision detection and a generous degree of health, the chances of surviving are a lot higher than almost any game we have ever played. Seriously, throw in 7 instant saves per level and most of the 12 levels on default normal skill level can be conquered in between half an hour and 90 minutes, which means that most of you will have polished this off over a weekend. Work it out. The game really improved over Hitman 2 Silent Assassin with new features such as moving speed in sneak mode is now increased, running speed has been increased and no longer causes guards to attack the player. Different fiber wire killing animations are introduced, including one where 47 snaps the neck of the victim. Multiple melee weapons are introduced, though they cannot be saved or taken to other missions. Anesthetic is replaced by a sedative syringe, which affects the victim for a short time only. The circular inventory is introduced. The map now clearly distinguishes dead and alive people from each other. More icons are added to the map. The sniper rifle case is reintroduced for carrying W2000 sniper rifle. Balcony jump reintroduced. Suspicious meter has been reworked and now is in a vertical shape and in the bottom left corner of the screen along with the help bar. This suspicious meter is now also a bit forgiving if you are disguised. Walk, run, and lock-picking glitches from the predecessor are now fixed. Furthermore, now you can also look around when looking through a keyhole, unlike Hitman 2 Silent Assassin, where the camera was fixed. All the game missions are of night time and it's always raining or snowing in all of the missions except the last one, And that's maybe because Agent 47 is dreaming those missions through the flashbacks. Having said that, most of the missions are from the first Hitman game, Hitman Codename 47, but to be honest, they look and play better in Hitman Contracts, as IO is not a very big gaming company, so you can see little graphical glitches here and there, but the gameplay and the environment gets over them instantly. Unlike most games around these days, part of Contract's charm is the replayability of some, but not all, levels. For example, one of the Hong Kong levels tasks 47 with causing the death of a triad leader and making it look like the death was caused by a rival gang. Arguably, the hardest level of the bunch, there are actually at least numerous ways to succeed, and every single one feels like a triumph once you manage it. Another level even offers you the choice of fighting your way out of an apartment building swarming with SWAT teams or play it quiet, and it's all the better for offering you the choice. Often, you actually feel like throwing caution to the wind and killing everyone just to prove that you can. Other times, the thrill of the sneak seems like the more compelling option. It's very much up to you. If we were to side with one style over the other, it's true that Contract feels at its most cohesive when it's forcing the player to think rather than allowing the player to simply run around shooting everyone. It seems a shame, in a way, that often the most efficient way of completing a level is to manage your save games wisely and just charge through each mission, blasting everyone and keeping your distance. The upshot is that this approach means that you can effectively ignore all the cunning, sabotage, stealth kills, and disguises available to you. Example, all the bits that the game does really well. Having said that, the fact that Contracts doesn't punish the player too hard for alerting guards and playing the Rambo mass murderer is something of a relief for the simple reason that the game would otherwise risk becoming ridiculously frustrating. Part of the fun, for many, may well be to charge through the game, sightseeing, then pick from favorite contracts and attempt to win the extra weaponry rewards offered by completing each contract cleanly, with no blood on your hands and no one the wiser to your presence. Regardless of your gaming preference though, it's a pleasant relief to be able to tackle a level via your own route, with your own weapons and choice of disguise. No one's forcing you to do it either way. At the very least, IO deserves praise for even attempting to pull off such a feat. But as we touched on earlier, this mix and match approach would be so much better than it is if IO had managed to hone either element. Armed combat at the default difficulty level requires little to no skill to master, while the stealth side of the game often feels too restrictive to be as useful as it could be. While not wishing to make unfair comparisons, Splinter Cell gets it right by allowing you to lurk in the shadows and use sound to your advantage, while Metal Gear Solid gives the player an instant reference of the subject's field of vision, at least for the most part. In Contracts, unless you are lucky enough to be right behind a player and able to creep quietly enough, they are prone to turning around at the most inconvenient moments. Your chances of garroting or injecting an enemy are limited. Also, luring guards away from the areas they are guarding is next to impossible, meaning that a disguise is often the only option available to you. Much of the time, you are basically working around the design limitations imposed. When logic suggests that the solution should be easier than cutting off the gas, poisoning the drinks, and dressing up as a chef. A minor gripe comes around the halfway point when it's apparent that the team basically ran out of ideas and decided to repeat entire levels wholesale. The first time it happens, it feels a bit of a jolt. Finding out that another level is entirely reused feels a little cheap. Sure, the scenario is somewhat different, but the point remains that you are only effectively seeing 10 levels, and some of the later missions fall into a formulaic trap that hints that the project ran out of steam under pressure to release the game on time. On to more aesthetic matters. The detail level throughout the game never fails to impress. With some of the most subtle effects and intricate design yet seen on a PS2, what it lacks in texture detail is more than make up for with sound architecture and the presence of some beautiful post-filter effects, which IO has reportedly managed to bring in thanks a refined 4 times faster game engine. If the early part of the game doesn't impress dramatically, by the time you are wandering around the steam-laden streets of Hong Kong, you definitely will be. Subtle effects such as post-color correction are especially noticeable as you emerge from a darkened area into the light. In keeping with the other titles in the series, the animation is somewhat stylized and open to criticism, particularly for the odd quirk that leaves 47 looking more like a wobbly-legged puppet than a cold-eyed killer. IO seems more than capable of ramming the game chock full of excellent death animations and well-defined characters with bags of charm, but making them run convincingly seems to be a task too far once again. If you happen to change direction repeatedly, 47 slides helplessly, and the overall feel is that you are gliding along rather than actually running. But if it feels all a bit odd to begin with, the reality is you don't really care for too long, and the more you play the game, the more you appreciate the ability to instantly flick between first and third person viewpoints. For the most part, the game works exceptionally well in either mode, although it's fair to say that the sniper rifle and night vision goggles could have been better implemented, as they tend to act as more of a hindrance than a help. Audio-wise, Contracts follows the series' tradition of employing the considerable talent of Jasper Kidd, who has yet again conjured an exceptional soundtrack that, for the most part, is an unobtrusive backdrop to the already dark and moody ambience on show elsewhere. After this game, there were actually not much dark missions in the sequels, and the later games don't feel much creepy at all. Especially impressive is the way that room-based music pans in and out of the speakers depending on where you are positioned. Meanwhile, the voiceovers are generally of a high class in the impressively stylish cutscenes, but tend to stray into parody territory in almost every worldwide setting. The great music composer Jasper Kidd returns to score the OST for this game as well. And believe me, it's the best OST in entire Hitman game series. Even till this day. Agent 47 is voiced by David Bateson, the voice artist from the previous 2 Hitman games. All told, Contracts is a game that's almost always enjoyable, thanks to the freedom it grants the player. Also, with its more forgiving default skill level, it's less likely to induce those city-smashing moments that other sneaky games seem to revel in. With this in mind though, the more seasoned hitman out there would definitely feel less inclined to moan about dumb AI and unrealistic health levels. By heading straight for the expert level, although reducing the save count to 2 per level is bound to cause a few headaches. Solid evolution, but with only a few relatively minor tweaks such as a few new weapons, moves and animation. It's fair to say that Contracts is a solid evolution of the series rather than the dramatic improvement version 2 was over the original. If you're a gamer that embraces the open-ended trial and error gameplay and don't mind that it's neither the best example of stealth nor action gameplay, then this will serve you well. But as entertaining as Contracts undoubtedly is, there's still plenty of room for improvements before IO nails this compelling potpourri of gaming styles. I will rate this game 8.0 out of 10. So hope you liked today's video. Make sure you are a subscriber of Irrational Gamer. Goodbye.